Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again this month at Curiosita. I hope you all had a great month. I also hope that you considered the possibility of not seeing us again and that you did great things. I'm still always amazed that we get up in the morning and we think we have to see our loved ones. I don't quite understand that, because every morning I greet my beautiful wife. I say, okay, I may not see you again. But for some reason, many of you have got better connections, so you obviously believe it won't happen. But I'm very grateful that it, at the same time, didn't happen with any one of you and that you're here again. So welcome. Especially welcome to our two colleagues, one of our PhD colleagues sharing with you as other PhD colleagues some of his learning. And I enjoyed my discussion with Dave when we prepared for the session. So I'm looking forward. Dave, he is from the company Tekmation. He's a director there, and as you would have seen, his interest is going to work on alternative, and please test him on this, Imeka, an alternative training strategy.
Okay.
So I wonder what will be the alternative.
Yes.
Yeah, we wonder. And particularly for artisans, and very important as it is for a PhD at Da Vinci, a global perspective on that. So there must be somebody today, either in India or in Sweden or in Uruguay, that must wait for this outcome. A global perspective on artisan training. Society over the last 20, 30 years have developed almost a sense that we don't need those professional, practical application skill and knowledge. We're so much in the knowledge thing, and the knowledge thing is about we must all just have the academic abstract concepts. I'm very pleased, Dave, that you are interested in this field, not just for purposes of South Africa, but for purposes of the wider community. So we're really looking forward to that. And then our guest speaker today, Dr. Mostert, as you may or may not know, alumnus of Da Vinci and running his own business in the space of leadership development and doing a lot of, I think, great work if I listen to the grapevine, both at Da Vinci and at other education institutions, but at the workplace. I think Morne has a particular understanding of the needs of the workplace and an appreciation of how important it is that people should all play their part. So I also hope that he will engage in a similar way, and because I think he expects you to play your part in him being here today. He does come from the Cape, so be a bit soft on him.
Be gentle.
Be gentle on him.
Yeah.
Is that okay, Dave? Are you considering it? Yeah. Okay. Well, with those few words, Dave, up to you. So share with us a bit. Where does Dave come from? What is the grounding of this man? So why do we have you spend your time and your energy on conducting a PhD research?
Now, firstly, I must just say thank you, Prof, for this opportunity, and to all my colleagues here. I don't proclaim to be any expert in this field here, and I'm expecting some feedback from the audience, and also at the same time, if there are certain areas that we could discuss, I think that's a reason I'm here. The other point that I want to make is we are in transition in South Africa at the present moment when it comes to this field, artisan training and development. So it made sense as a company, Jay and I are directors of Tekmation, and we into skills development and training to actually pursue this line of study. And yeah, I started off as an apprentice and then worked my way up the ladder, so to say. But a lot of self-study and part-time studies until we got to this point here. Both Jay and I, our studies are unparalleled, so we just help each other. However, during the course of our studies, I found that there were obstacles and problems for somebody who come through the blue-collar route to get to university, mainline university, or to study, or to get some sort of articulation pathway. There wasn't that available. And so unfortunately, some of the brighter sparks out there who were using the term of the electricians, they could not move on and get further their studies. So the reason I looked at this was partly because of that, and also partly because of what's happening in South Africa now. We don't have some sort of clear defined system that we can get to a point where we can say, right, somebody that comes out of a technical college at Technikon can go through to a mainline university, so pursue a PhD. For us, it's been difficult. That's why it's taken us so long to get to this part. And the thing that we would like to see come out of this research is that a learner, a student, or an artisan coming through that route may find it quite easy to articulate to actually go and pursue a degree, a honors, a master's, and a PhD. And some of the models that are looked at around the other countries, they also have issues, because the US, by word of reference, they don't look at the blue collar worker as a mainline worker. They just look at him as part of the workforce that they have. So
I want to interrupt for a moment. Yeah. Sam, so why do you think this is possible, that he'll be able to cross this boundary of taking a blue collar worker into a white collar space? What do you think about that?
It's quite a challenge.
Uh-huh.
I don't know whether that's necessary, because one can take a technical ladder, or one can take a technical ladder, and two can become sister and brother type of something. But I think there is a need for understanding of the two, but there's not necessarily a must that one should really transition into that, because in my view is that there are people who purposely choose to remain in that line of work. I don't know whether when they go higher up the technical ladder, you still call it a blue collar. We have to define what's the blue collar, and then that will help us.
But I thought I want to pose that, just pause for a moment, because you start with a specific definition.
Yes, yeah.
The difficulty of the blue collar worker to get into a different space.
Yeah.
So it's almost as if there are barriers.
Yeah.
There are perceptions that maybe those barriers may be required.
Correct.
Okay?
Yeah. And so when we look at the artisan development in South Africa, we find that during the transition period to the new government, all training and development had stopped. So the parastatals were training for their space, but that stopped. And then we moved on with the new government into learnerships. Now the learnership confused everybody in the industry, because you get the older guys out there who says, what is a learnership? So the government's gone back now, and they've taken the apprenticeship and reinforced that together with the learnership, and we got something called the NCV now. So those three pathways can now lead to a qualification. When we talk about qualification in the artisan development, we're talking about a trade test certificate. That's like the end point of the artisan training, and from there on you can go on to other spaces. So that's what's happening at the present moment. And but one of the problems we have is that about 80% of our workforce now has reached the age of 50 plus. So that's now nearly retirement age. If we don't get a proper structured system in place to train and to develop artisans and technicians and engineers, then the infrastructure, the strategic infrastructure projects that we have in the country, I don't know, we're importing labor from outside, and yet we have a big youth contingent in South Africa that can actually be trained as artisans in a very systemic fashion. So yeah, that's also there's universities that are flooded with applications, and my thinking is that maybe we can get some of those people from universities going into this route and still getting that degree, or moving on to a PhD or whatever they still. So there's a dual pathway that I see, like a framework that it exists at the moment, but there must be a little bit. Yeah, there must be articulation.
So Dave, can you tell me, what is it about the current paradigm, therefore, that's not working?
Yeah. I have one of my colleagues, Danny Motlantu. He's from Nexa. I'm going to ask him that question now. Danny, I think.
Well, Danny, you don't have a choice now, brother. Now you have to share that. So what is wrong with the current paradigm?
The major problem is career guidance, because most of the students go through the normal academic school up to grade 12, then thereafter go to FET college and start from grade 12, N1, which is equivalent to grade 9. So they waste something like 3 years in their careers. That's the
Okay.
Is that the only problem?
This-
Nah,
What are the problems?
plenty of problems.
Well, give us more, because surely that's not in. I mean, that can be
Yeah.
easily fixed. What else is the problem?
The major problem is career guidance, because people do not know. But in terms of the engineering field, we're not right at the bottom. We have got the artisans, and the technicians, technologists, and the engineers. But now they have introduced, as he says, the leadership, which confuses people, because you can be an artisan for Sasol, and but the standard is going to be different
Correct.
from an artisan at Next. So that's the problem.
So there's a professional
Yeah,
grading
there's a
quality
yes.
dilemma. Shirley?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's part of the problem, and I think what thesis, if it could come out yesterday, the Minister of Higher Education and Training would be very happy, because two of the big buzzwords for him are articulation,
Yes.
and it deals with this, the three sub-frameworks of the NQF and how they must articulate and know things and know barriers.
Yeah.
But there are barriers. There are two
Correct.
binary worlds, the
Correct.
academic world and the technical world, and yet they're supposed to be mixing and merging somewhere, etc. So it's a huge issue, and what you are researching, I think, is so important right now. And then the whole issue of the unemployed, what they call the NEET, is unemployment, educational training.
Right.
And where do they go, what happens to them, and the career advice issue is a big one. It's bigger, it's a systemic issue.
Correct.
And what you're talking about is systemic. It's the whole system of education, training, articulation, movement. And that thing of the learnerships and the apprenticeships and how those work, career guidance, the right terminologies, all of those things. So what you are studying and researching is absolutely incredible. And then there's the third thing, and we've done some work, I work now in the Department of Higher Education and Training. As I say, this is sort of there on the desk, is the issue of what they're calling white-collar trades. So in the UK and in the European Union setup, they're talking about white-collar trades because of the world of technology, nanotechnology, etc. So it's not a blue-collar anymore, it's a white-collar trade with a respect afforded to that sort of thing. So there's a lot of stuff I can send you. I'd be more than happy to
I'll
send
appreciate
you.
that.
And in the white paper, obviously, on
Yes,
post-school education and training, both an important documents. But I think it's a fascinating area of research.
But I want to add something. So if I listen to this, and we speak blue and white collared work and those classifications and problems that Danny referred to, I almost wonder if I engage with the artisan, do I get a sense that this is somebody who's got a strong voice professionally? Dave?
Yes.
Do they?
Yeah.
Why don't I hear that voice?
Yeah. You see, that's the that's the issue now.
Yeah.
You see, we're looking at this problem. We look at this problem, and we don't like look at it in a systems thinking way. We like, we look at it in pockets. Danny spoke about Sasol. Then we speak about like the ISCOs and those parastatals. They train for their need. Now the Sasol artisan, he was working on a multi-million rand plant. The Eskom guy is working on a nuclear power station, and he's working. So they're training for themselves, but those niche areas now is actually proprietary. So what I'm proposing, maybe like to look at national and then global, so that you get a standardized artisan who can have a voice. I mean, he can say to the university, listen, I'm coming with an N3 or an N4. I don't have a metric, but I want to get into your program and study, for an engineering degree, or go to the University of Technology and then say to them, I want to do a national diploma. At present, they just, after they finish with the trade test, There's the N4 to N6 route also that's available, but it becomes a little bit difficult for them because once they finish the N6, which is the national N6, they must go back to the University of Technology or to the university and start from the bottom. Now that is where the problem is.
Okay, so that's in the technical side, but what if they want to become entrepreneurs, which the country and society needs?
Yeah.
People are, the younger generation are turning more away from the corporate
Mhm,
space.
mhm.
So where does the artisan go in terms of management after that?
Yeah. You see, there's. All right. Let me just talk from a personal point of view. Now, I have two sons who are in the same engineering space. They worked with us. We built the business together, but they found that they could actually apply their skills outside the country. So now they're working outside the country, and they've actually got like better positions out there than they would have in South Africa at the moment. So I think, again, we need to accept the artisan as a profession, as a professional person. Now, once we do that and we give him the respect and he's afforded all of that. An artisan is a quiet person. You ask about a voice. He's a guy who will go to work, he'll come back, he has his car, he has his house, he's just living nice and cozy. But when he wants to move forward now, he finds the blockages, and then, he's happy earning his salary. So I think, maybe,
I think the limitation in the artisans becoming entrepreneurs of their own
Yeah.
is simply because of the
Correct.
space doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So you say he must go and learn management. But I think they must be given a space to sell their trade,
Yeah.
their expertise. And they must be able to negotiate for the value that they actually offer.
Correct.
At the moment, the system doesn't allow them.
them.
We always talk about artisans, but somebody owns them somewhere.
Yes.
Either the company that trained them
Yeah.
or agent that is actually
Yeah.
placing them somewhere. So they will not have a voice.
You can.
So that's
Yeah.
why they will always be actually be subset of the major other opportunities. And
So
the best person for me, if we want to elevate them to that level where the white collars are, for me, lack of a better way, they must get to a point where they can trade and negotiate.
You can negotiate.
Not an agent coming and have a pool of them and
Yeah.
say, if you're looking for artisans, talk to me. And you never get to see that artisan until he arrives at the plant.
Excuse me, yeah.
Yes, can I just come in there?
Yeah.
But surely, if you look at the youngsters at school at this present point in time, they study up to a point, but there's certain skills that they're lacking. One is management,
Yeah.
business acumen. I think if you give them the basics in business acumen, irrespective of what field they're going to go into, they will be prepared to run a
To become.
business because of the basics they have. Now, English, Afrikaans, maths are, or maths not so much, but they are compulsory.
All right.
So what you say, right, we make accounting compulsory, one of the others, but you can select one of the other accounting or technical or IT
Mm-hmm.
as another compulsory subject. But when they get to a certain stage, they've got that acumen behind them to carry on with the profession. So that if they do become entrepreneurs, like an electrician or a plumber, he's able to run his own business.
All right.
He's got that basis.
Okay.
Yeah, can I come in
May I?
here? Okay, I belong to the construction industry, okay, where if you look at this building, somebody can actually look at this building as a component of about 15 trades, artisan trades or professional trades. Okay, the reason why I'm actually trying to make this point now is I want to understand whether it's actually necessary for an artisan to migrate. That transition you are contemplating right now, is it really necessary
Yeah.
that an artisan should leave his expertise as an artisan, a skilled person, and migrate to become a manager or something like that? Because you see, if you bring somebody here, if I become very finicky with details, I might as well segregate this building into about between 15 to 21 building trades. Okay, and there are very highly specialized artisans in these areas, and they probably they would have gone through an apprentice learning process, and they probably became an artisan. Somebody becomes an artisan. He works under a plumbing company, assuming that he's a plumbing artisan. or he's a building artisan, a mason, or maybe a carpenter, maybe a glazer or ironmonger. You know, all these things we do in the building, and they perfect the whole idea. And over time, they have a small business where they are all artisans and they work there. They are called in. I know contractors, what they do. Some contractors, what they do is that they get a contract.
Yeah.
And they assemble all these people and
Yes,
they will do
bring
their
them.
work.
Yeah.
And they take an arbitrage.
Yeah.
Right? So some contractors work that way. Some actually have these specialist people within their work and they take them along as every time they get a project, they do that. So I want to know, is it actually necessary?
Yeah.
Because that is where the problem lies now.
Yeah.
If you come to, say, South Africa, okay, if you look at my shoes, it's quite dirty. I'm just coming from a site where the mayor was commissioning a project. The COJ mayor was commissioning a project. We helped him to set up somewhere in Saudi. So it was a dusty place. I just came back from there.
Yeah.
So the problem we have is training. They are talking about training. You know, we don't have artisans, but they have a lot of people like me who speak a lot of English. You know, probably have very huge degrees and all that stuff. But the point is that this area is, we are lagging there. The society, the economy is not having people there. Because people don't want to go to artisan schools anymore. I think they closed the trade schools and all we need to do, is it necessary for people to migrate?
Yeah.
I'm asking.
Good observation and some good points. You see, presently what's happening, we have a scarce skill shortage in this country. Now we're looking at various categories of scarce skills. And now you can get the artisan who will remain an artisan, and you get those artisans who want to articulate and move on.
Yeah.
We must create that pathway. You see, if we don't create that pathway, then what happens is we'll all be artisans. There'll be no engineers like you and I, out there. We want skills to actually move, in a very, it must be upward mobility. We must create that space for them. And not everybody is all going to also go up there. You get middle management and you're going to get those designers and people. And it's the artisan who's been on the floor as a boilermaker who can design something as a lobster bag in a part of a design team. But he takes a different skill set now from being an artisan because he's got to learn some new skills, in the design team. So all those things need to be taken into account when we're looking at what, the topic that I'm talking about. It may be a bit, sometimes our youth need to get into the workforce first and then find their feet. Because we're finding that there's a lot of applications that we come from a university town, UKZN, is there DUT, is there the Mangasutus are there. You'll see the number of students that apply to those universities get turned away, and they don't know what to do with themselves after that when they get turned away. We're saying there's an alternate to that now.
Okay.
There's an alternate to get this.
Yeah, but can I continue there just a bit? The university, as it is, you get a first degree programs where people study all forms of engineering, quantity surveying, construction management, town planning and all that stuff. The university has that, and that is booming, and that is where everybody seems to be going to get an application to go and study and come out. And when they qualify, really they have a technical skill, no doubt. All right, when they qualify with that degree, they have a technical skill. Then if they want to do master's degree, that's when they begin to acquire management knowledge, and they probably begin to think from a philosophical perspective. They want to do a PhD. But that it is because of this focus on the bachelor's degree, stuff that is why the artisan training schools and colleges are now suffering. We don't have people going back there. Actually, what you're saying is that there are a lot of people who are turned away from the universities because probably the space is not going to take a faculty that has a capacity to admit 1,000 people, probably get 5,000 applications. You get it? So it will take 1,000 people. Highest it probably takes 1,500. Then the remaining 3,500 will be sent away. So the alternative you're talking about is this should be able to harness these guys.
Correct.
Okay, and teach them something.
Yeah.
So I think what needs to be done is to find a way to glamorize the artisan.
Right.
Okay, so that he will see himself as a rock star.
Yes.
And he wants to,
like
that he would like to go there. He wants to be an artisan. That people want to be an artisan. Let's create an artisan schools so that people will go and become artisans and do artisan and do business as artisans, make money as artisans and be proud to I think that some plumbers earn much more than most of us here who have PhDs. You know that?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, you know that. And so many artisans. So let's get them to, it is important to probably create a situation whereby these people want to go and become, those who couldn't get into university to go and become artisans.
Okay, so I think that's an interesting perspective. Widen it, enrich it. Edwin?
Is the risk then in terms of saying that, I mean, what Sam is saying is that you fail to get into university and therefore we're giving you an alternative route to get there. So we are still
Back to the
glorifying the
Go
university
back
as
to
the
the
place that it
university.
must be. And this is an alternative route to get there. Instead of actually saying that being an artisan is actually a great thing to be, you go and become an artisan because it's a great thing to be rather than you fail to get to university.
But I think that will be his challenge,
Yeah.
to get ways of dealing with that. I just want to share a little bit something. In the mid-80s, research indicated that 30% of all, well, let me ask you a different question. Medical doctors are almost like artisans for me.
Yes.
Actually,
They've got a trade,
Yes.
and they learn it, and they practice it for 5 years, and then they do it very well. But in the mid-80s, 37% of all medical practitioners left the medical practice to go into management and to do research and to create job opportunities for other.
Yeah.
So I also want us to wonder, when you look at this alternative pathway, do you look at the individual as an ever-developing
Correct.
individual?
Correct. It's
We're not static.
lifelong learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we speak lifelong learning, but
Yes.
we don't do it.
Yeah.
So my view almost in America is that maybe by the age of 30, I'm good in my trade, but I actually want to work with teams of people, and I actually want to create other opportunities for other people.
Yes.
And I think we need more of that engine room
Yes.
being established in South Africa and in Africa as a whole, and for that matter the world, that individual people will become the engines that start a new energy.
Okay.
Because we're looking too much at somebody that will do it for us. And the artisan is a good example of being trapped there. I'll have to wait for you to give me an opportunity. Jay?
Yeah, what I want to
Yes?
say,
This is a good chance.
No, just to add on to that, because one of the notes that I've made here is there's a very good TED talk that talks about the danger of a single story. So we've spoken about the barriers that we see that the institution, whether it's organizational or academic, is imposing on us. The only thing that I want to probably ask, that probably links to what you're saying in terms of student of life and growth and creating that pathway, I agree with that. But my question is whether we're enabling the right mindset about the stories that they believe. So I'm wondering whether, if you talk about your everyday artisan, whether they believe that they have got the element, and what is the role that they all play, even if we create all of these things, there's an element of change and buy-in and getting these guys to broaden their horizons to say that you can be anything that you want to be. I had a conversation with a teacher the other day, and for the first time in her life, she didn't see what she's doing out of conversation. She thought that now that she's a teacher, she'll be a teacher for the rest of her life. She's 23. So she didn't have the ability to refrain broader than that. So when you talk about getting the institutionalized platforms and roots out of that, there's a big part of getting people's view about the danger of a single story, of how we view artisans, but also how they view themselves to actually embrace this.
Correct.
So opening up those opportunities.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get you now, Jay.
no, what I want just to go back to the importance of getting artisans to believe that they could become
Rock stars.
but they could grow businesses that would basically increase the number of artisans. A very good example, actually, Dave and I. We started as artisans, and we don't know how we got to the place where we are now, and we run a school where we also train artisans.
Yeah.
So, there must be some things that you can research about the things we've done right, maybe.
Correct. Yeah. So our life story.
Okay. We mustn't forget, we can train all these people, but we've got to put a contingency in place that where are we going to employ these additional artisans? Because we seem to be focusing on let's train, let's get people up and running. But let's not demoralize them once they train, because you have to put a contingency in place to say, right, you can enter into that market. You've got to have an outlet for them to actually go in and do what they've been trained to do.
Because if we don't have that, we're going to have that demoralization effect that then nobody will want to do it. So you have to take the one and the other at the same time and plan them and bring them to a point where they can't do it.
Supply and demand.
Morne?
David, I think the other thing we need to look at, I don't know what it's called these days, but in the day of Leonardo da Vinci used to be called the master craftsman.
Yes.
And
Yes.
when I used to deal with artisans,
Yeah.
talk to them,
Correct.
very often they used to tell me the story, there wasn't the studies, it wasn't the training center that made them, was that artisan that taught them, showed them how to do it, gave them the understanding and the, almost the
So the
secrets
mentor.
of the trade,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think what's partly happening in the last 10 years or 15 years is that the 50 or 45 years old probably then, they
Out of the system.
They were retrenched or they were retired or whatever,
Correct.
and there wasn't enough people to actually willing, not on contract, but willingly teach the youngsters.
Right.
Now they have to be paid and being put back by ESCOM as contractors to train the youngsters. We need to find
Yeah.
new master craftsmen that will actually willing, they'll see it as they are part of their mission, to actually train the new generation.
Okay.
That's part of the solution.
I fully agree. If I may add to that, the Bavaria Motor Works, which is BMW, was actually created by master craftsmen.
Okay.
And I think it would be good for your study to look at the German experience.
Yeah.
As that is what's keeping the German economy buoyant
Right.
now.
Yeah.
There's a solution.
Yeah.
You say, you're going on pension. Sorry, you stay on for another 5 years. as a
Yes.
pensioner at
Yes.
these categories.
Right.
Very straightforward. So in other words, you're keeping going for 5 years, but as a trainer. So it now becomes a trainer.
Well, it's not as simple as that.
Yeah, I know, but I mean,
Yeah.
Cultural
concept,
issues and,
yeah.
you need to really manage the situation.
Okay, so that's a bit of the context, Dave.
Right.
Now, as a PhD, you must always also be interested in what kind of epistemological references you have. You know, how do you look at the world? You've now heard how many others look at the world.
Right.
So maybe you must give us a little bit of how are you going to approach this, and what is the methodological frames that you are considering at this point?
You know, this research falls like it actually overarches quite a few areas, but I'm looking at a mixed mode research that I want to do, but also at the same time,
Okay, now talk to us first to help us. Mixed mode, so what does that mean?
yeah, I'll do a bit of qualitative and quantitative research. When I say a bit, I don't know how big this research is going to be now. So from what I'm hearing here, there's like a bigger problem that I see here now.
Okay.
So I'm going to go back. Like I already changed the topic and looked at developing a developmental framework for artisan training, a systemic perspective. So that's the change already from what I've had. Sorry guys, I just put this in. Yeah, so I'm going to have to look at different models that are used internationally. But there's one before I go there, Prof. I just wanted the gentleman that spoke about what we're going to do with these people that come out. I want to speak about the Finland. Finland's a very small country. They actually don't have a very big a lot of resources. Their resources are their labor that they have, and what they do is they take in their people and they put them in through programs, and they put them into programs from school to university, and then they have started what they call labor export. So they manufacture equipment in the pulp and paper, and they send their trained artisans, technicians, and engineers outside of the country to go and work outside of the country for years on end, and obviously this creates finances and revenue for them. But at the same time, they continue training. So we in South Africa, we have 7 oil refineries. We have the gold mines. We have the likes of the ESCOMs. We still have a lack there. And then there's a strategic projects that are coming up. There's still areas for employment. But in the Middle East, some of the biggest refineries now are being built. And South African artisan is like is gold there. Let's put it that way. So if we train the artisans and we give them the right tool, the right skill sets, and right mental attitude and makeup, these guys can excel out there. So I believe that they can do it there. So that's the one area
you
I
see
wanted
a
to
global
stop.
market?
I see a global market.
Okay, good.
All right. So coming back to how I'm going to approach this research now, it will be looking at some of the countries that have, like Germany. I was just thinking of that, Germany, the US, Australia, and New Zealand, looking at them, getting some research and information from there. And then also our local the government departments are moved now to what we call the QCT, or Quality Council for Trade and Occupation. Look at that model and look at how we can improve there, and then send out some survey forms to people and see if I can get information from them, what their standpoint is and where I can get that.
Shirley, you've just almost concluded your PhD. Doesn't this sound a little bit vague for you? Can you guide the colleague?
I was listening there and thinking, is he going to use, for example, structured questionnaires? Is he going to draw that data? If it's qualitative, is he going to use a case study? Is he going to go grounded theory? What methodology is best going to give you the answers that you're looking for? And certainly it sounds as if the sort of the qualitative one would be, but maybe 2 or 3 or 4 case studies in a South African context, and then looking at the broader literature of what's happening globally in the artisan space.
Emeka, what can you help him a bit with? What must he do with the current artisans? Don't you think there's a voice for them in his research?
I believe he's what the current artisans, those who are actually working as functional artisans.
Yes.
You're probably going to find out from them. It is, I believe, it is their experience and how they got to that place that we are attempting to replicate to an extent.
So a survey.
Yeah. So you're probably going to, so they're going to be your study group, one of the study groups. But I'm also like wanting to understand the theoretical perspective. How are you going to place this in theory? Which is actually what is going to be your PhD. How are you going to place this whole idea in abstract theory?
Because let's just clarify the methodological aspect. It seems to me you can benefit with your supervisor and some PhD other colleagues to maybe sit around a table and say, let's do a little bit of a scoping exercise.
Okay.
Who should be in and part of this? If you really want to create that alternative global perspective, where will you get those voices from? And then look at the methodological aspects. And before we move on to that, can I ask our alumnus here, what do you want to add that he must do for his methodology?
Well, he mentioned that they had to look at how they grew their business. And so there's something about the
own case study.
Case study or ethnographically to include that. That, and then I'm also thinking you go and get the ethnographic of the guys that are standing outside Builder's Warehouse who say plumber and tiler and that, and talk with them. Where did they learn that? Why are they only there? What else can they do? What did they want to have? You have a vast experience there that you can draw on.
I think that's beautiful.
Okay.
I think that's beautiful. Okay. But I think you can benefit by exploring that and maybe get some of the alumnus around a table on Telcon and talk to them about it. But back to Emeka's comment, the theoretical grounding. Where is this going?
That's now to be, that's where I need help here. I need to be helped.
Do you want to tell him, what do you hear when he says the theoretical grounding? Can you engage with him? Have a little debate. What can you talk to him? What do you hear if he tells you that?
Emeka, what?
What do you hear? What do you hear when someone says theory?
Help him now.
No, I want to get his understanding so that I know where I can actually help you.
Well, he gave you one guideline. He said he's going to work from a systemic perspective.
Yes.
So most probably he's going to define all the systems and the subsystems and the related systems in the social context. That's probably got an awareness of that.
Yes.
But that's his theoretical frame for his study, or it could be.
Good. Yes. Yeah.
But then you have to be true to that and systemically really explore as many of those engagements as possible.
Yes.
Just as you guys have now added
Yeah.
as potentials.
Okay.
And there's one. I think for us to actually establish the basis for this. If you look at government departments, say the government, there's attempting to do is yearning for artisan development programs, but has not been able to do that. Okay, to the best of my knowledge, they have not been able to do that. If there is one that happens found, maybe some other person will have, at least in recent times, which when I actually began to get involved. Now, you are going to be looking at how you can give it a developmental perspective, like how the government establishment would be able to take the idea and implement it in this particular space, and implement it in another particular space. Let's assume you implement it in construction, you implement it in metallurgical engineering, you implement it in mining engineering, you implement it in all these areas where you need artisans. So how are you going to, like, you got to lift it up to the point where it becomes, this is an abstract that could be, you pick it from this place and drop it here, you pick it from this place and you drop it there, probably with a little bit of adaptation. You get adapt it to local circumstances, but it has to be that which hangs somewhere. You know what I'm trying to say? That is where the theory I'm talking about comes to be. So if government is going to do it, that's okay. If private individuals will do it, that's okay. If somebody like you and I, who probably would want to set up a school for artisans, who want to do it, that's okay. But the idea will be that idea is something you can, when you pick it, you know that this idea has its roots. Only maybe you adapt it a little bit and it becomes, without defacing that idea. Not that you cannot, not that it is not going to be defaced if there's a need to do it, but it should be able to stand if you're going to take it somewhere else.
Good.
You get it?
I think
Sam?
I think there's also an opportunity at the moment with the infrastructure problem.
Yes.
To pose a question to them, say, what will make you to stop from focusing really on sourcing external artisans into here? Is there an opportunity for us to plug in as a solution for the future using these current projects? Last time when Jack was here, we were talking about that dilemma. That if once they set up the timelines and they have to and tell them that we are going to develop artisans, to give to them, they're not going to listen to you.
That's the point.
There are other pressures.
Yes.
So at this stage, when they are still designing and planning, I think it's important to lock in the solution for the country.
Okay.
So if we forfeit the opportunity of employing our very own because they don't meet the quality, because they tell you that even the welders we have, they are there, but they don't meet the standard. So can we plug a solution in there that bring your work as insight into that? But also, coming to the point that was raised in terms of the design of the education system. Only if we can get to a point where the artisan development is plugged into the education system, then when I finish matric and I choose to take the technical line of studies, but I'm not worried about the articulation issues. I know I can go as far as PhD because of articulation. But the moment people look at it, they know that they're going to be stuck. Right now, the FET colleges are suffering from that because they're not really accepted to be plugged in the system. As this was raised, I go to FET because I couldn't go to another institution. So the problem lies with us, the society, and the students. And most likely, all of us at our homes will tell our children not to go to institutions.
So you get professional careers.
Yes.
As another one, you get technical careers. So I'm almost expecting theoretically to juxtaposition these different interpretations alongside each other. Because he wants to create a new brand of artisan. And maybe you'll take a little bit from the professional world, you'll take a little bit from the academic world, you'll take a little bit from the technical world, you'll take a little bit from the practical world. And that will become, hopefully, an alternative.
Well, I don't know whether
Artisan.
I don't know whether we're helping or confused. I've heard him saying that I've already changed my topic.
Yeah.
So I think we need to hear from you and whether you are going to reformulate your topic, whether we have or whether we make it.
But I think following Emeka's question, from a PhD does need to have that theoretical groundwork. So they can make an argument, why is he speaking an alternative? Well, it must be an alternative to something.
Okay.
And he must ground that. Because all of that knowledge is well documented globally. It's there.
Yeah.
He must just go and pick from it what he wants.
I think-
Okay, Shirley?
I think he needs to also again put it in the context of South Africa right now. And the issues, and again I raise these issues of the two binary worlds. Very few people would know that the person who designed Ayrton Senna's racing cars
Yes.
was in fact a student from my ex-technical college of which I was principal, Gordon Murray.
Yes.
He was a motorman.
Yeah.
He started. Ian
Devon
McRae
boy,
started his trade
Yeah.
at that same college. Bill Fenter
Yes.
started
Yes.
his trade. Now when we look at these people, so
Yeah.
how did they manage to cross
Transcend.
that, bring those worlds?
Yeah.
So I think if you're looking for a new model for the artisan, it's paradigm shift, change, that whole paradigm has to change. Currently, when you read about technical colleges, and you said it, you won't send your kid there. What do we read? It's a place where poor people send their children, where the kid who can't think but only works with their hands does this.
Yeah.
It's a place for practical skills. Ooh, that's the most uncool place in the world to go. So now, it's bigger than just changing the model. It's the articulation, it's where they go, it's what we've been saying, the moving across the system, changing the opinions, looking at this as a valuable place to work, be, grow the economy, the entrepreneurship issue, bringing that in, creating jobs. So I like to see it as a holistic system. And looking in the pockets in the world, Germany being a case in point, but certainly the UK moving in that direction. Very good research done by Rosafier around these issues of white-collar trades, where it's going. So to me, it's a systemic thing. So when you say looking at it, look at it as a whole system, what do you do? And you're going to emerge with a new type of artisan.
But I like what you're also saying there. She just gave you 3 great case studies of people who almost create an alternative perspective on who's the artisan. I think Bill Fent is a good one, Ian McRae, and I just don't know the other. Gordon Murray, just don't know him that well. But I think those are things that you must explore, or include part of your study.
Okay.
Great. Any other questions, Danny?
Isn't the fundamental issue part of calling this the alternative route? Because it's alternative to almost saying, if you didn't get this is the alternative route to get there. Instead of actually saying, this is actually a cool route, or this is how you actually get in life. It's not an alternative, it's actually it's a primary choice. As an alternative, you could do this or this.
But you see, Edwin, it can also be that he talks about, the way I hear him talk about it is, it's the alternative. It's almost saying there's medical training and then there's alternative medical training. So he's almost making a statement of being non-normative in the education program he wants to develop. In that sense, it can be alternative.
I'm saying it's actually alternative in my mind conjures the sense of I couldn't buy this car, so I got the alternative. It's always say, actually, this is the car that I wanted in the first place. It's not an alternative.
Well, just remember your Da Vinci's alternative. Thanks for being a student. But I think we hear you. We must be sensitive for those things. Any other questions, comments, Danny?
Sorry, Danny, before you can you just share that experience of the Cheetah Skills competition that we hosted there? So, just close up when we say it's cool to be an artisan, maybe, right when you're sharing it.
Yeah, because the main thing was the government was taking the leading position in terms of artisan training. That is why they say they regarded 2013 as the year of artisan.
The artisan.
And the deputy minister was always saying it's cool to be an artisan. And that was the key word. And what I wanted to say then, it was the question of alternative. I fully agree with my brother.
Yeah.
If we say artisan training or artisan is a career of choice, maybe it will have a different meaning. Unlike saying it's an alternative. And the other thing, in terms of what we're discussing here, it's like we train people to be employed, not train people to employ other people. Like the people who are at the corners, painters, and so on. These people, they grow the economy. So they are the artisans, although they are called assistant artisans because they are not yet qualified. But in terms of economic growth, maybe
Yes.
you can take your research
Yeah.
in that direction, because you know the people who grow the economy are the artisans.
Yeah.
People
Right.
who started, all these factories,
Mhm.
they were initially artisans.
Mhm.
Okay, so to conclude, I want Lorraine to make a comment. Just share with us a little bit from a societal perspective. What do you hear is this discussion about?
I can see
I just want to see if she still, applies a PhD.
I'm listening to people talking about those difficulties. You know, I don't use that word PROF.
Mm.
I use the word difficulties. And there are difficulties, but I'm not hearing enough solutions. And I think solutions in everywhere. I liked the three people that I mentioned, followed them for years. My own father started off as an artisan and ended up as a resident engineer of a very big gold mine. So I've seen it in my own family happen. You gentlemen have shared with me previously
Yes.
what you've done and how they've done it. Be careful of going too wide
Right.
and missing the whole point of what it is. You can make one difference in South Africa today. You make that difference for the whole world.
Mm.
So it's nice to look at other places. I quite agree and get the case studies from there to compare it with that. But on the other hand, it is, we're here, we're now, we haven't got much time. You've got to be able to write a document that everybody wants to read now and wants to put into practice.
Okay.
Good.
I think that's
All right.
nice.
Very good. Yes, you're right. Thank you for sharing that, Max. Okay, any last important question to Dave? Can you just share with them who's your supervisors?
One supervisor is Prof. Roy Marcus,
Yes?
and I'm looking for one more supervisor, but I've spoken to Dr. Pat Naidu, so he's going to be my
So you need a field supervisor.
field supervisor.
Good. All right. So as you can see, he's very much in the starting of his studies, but I hope this was helpful.
No, very
I
helpful.
think make the linkages with some of the voices
Yes,
here. I
okay,
think
I'll
they are
do that.
great
Yeah.
perspectives. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.